Hey, everybody! It's Sam Amico with the 3-3-0 to go. Cavaliers, NBA, Hoops Wire, Variety. Life is just crazy right now, show. Happy to have you. Thanks for joining. And my goodness, I think I've gotten 3.5 hours of sleep since the Cavs season ended, which was last night. And let me tell you, I'm probably, I may not be too old yet to have 3 hours of sleep, but I'm certainly getting to that age where I need more than that. So I may be a little loopy today, but that's okay because we have all kinds of stuff to talk about, and I'll need high energy for this particular show. Let's start with the obvious. The Cavaliers season is over. It's hard to believe. In many ways, it's hard to believe because, I was just at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on Monday and thought, maybe they can steal one in Boston again. The Celtics have a tendency to slip up, which they did a little bit in Game 5. And the Cavs, played so hard without Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert. They came out and gave it their all. They just didn't have enough. So, it's been less than 24 hours that now that I'm doing this live, it's been less than 24 hours since the Cavs season has ended. And I think I haven't counted them, but if I can kind of recall them all in my head, the posts on the Cavs on hoopswire.com today, starting about midnight last night, I think we have like 10 or 12 just on the Cavs. So, I think that there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of different, I guess there's a lot of noise around this team. Usually after the game, right, for people who have followed me for some time, right after the game, I kind of write a recap, which are called dribbles. And, I actually sat next to Terry Pluto at a couple of the Cavs playoffs game, and I told him that, he writes things that are called scribbles for Cleveland.com. I told him I just ripped them off. And he said, go ahead, steal all you'd like. So I told him that would be the end of it. Anyway, so I like to share those weird random things before we get to the meat and potatoes of the show. But I would say that, last night, I think probably my dribbles column was the least read dribbles that I did of the season. And I get that because there was so much stuff that came after that we posted on hoopswire.com that was Cavs related. And, in the dribbles, I tried to add some perspective. And I said, we're about to get a lot of noise here. We're going to get a lot of rumors. Going to hear a lot about Donovan Mitchell. We're going to hear a lot about JB Bickerstaff. We're going to hear a lot about Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley and who's getting traded. Is a coach getting fired? And guess what? I was right, because those 10 or 11 other posts we've run on HoopsWire are kind of all about that stuff, or all about, Donovan Mitchell and his contract extension and coaching changes, and is JJ Redick the next coach of the Cavaliers? I mean, that was one post. So, and I think we try to run, which I try to do on the show here, we try to run things that are potentially real. And I think that's, it's hard to shuffle through that, but, when you have people like, say, The Athletic reporting stuff that we repurpose and aggregate, you could count, you can rely on guys like Jason Lloyd, Joe Varden, and Shams Charania of The Athletic. So, we ran a lot of stuff that they wrote about. I ran a lot of stuff that my own sources are telling me, and whether you believe me or not, my sources are, from 20 years, been doing this that long. And so it's usually, they're people I trust, because a lot of times they're usually right. So sifting through all that, which are so much. I thought before the show started right now, I thought, what do we start with? What do I talk about first? Because there's so much spinning through my mind, So let's start right now with Donovan Mitchell. Everybody wants to know, and really the entire Cavs offseason is based on whether or not Donovan Mitchell signs a contract extension, which would be for 4 years. Now, his contract, I'll try to put this in layman's terms, as simple as possible. I never really cared about contract talk and salary caps and all that stuff, but it's very important to the Cavaliers' future. And really, it's if Donovan Mitchell, I'm sorry, my light went out there for a second. I'll try and fix it. If not, I guess we'll just stay in the dark. But if Donovan Mitchell signs a contract extension, there we go. Then the Cavs offseason takes a different form, right? It's going to take a form of kind of like, where you're going. You know what roster moves you need to make to build. I don't want to say build around him, because I feel like the Cavs are kind of already built around him. But what moves you need to make around the edges? Do you make a major move? You can't decide any of that until you know what Donovan Mitchell's going to do and what his future holds, right? So I think that's where everything starts. Now, Cavs may not have an answer on that, a firm answer on that. They could have one, by the end of the next month, which is when you want one. They could have one tomorrow. It may not go public, but he could tell them what he's going to do one way or the other tomorrow. I doubt that happens, but it's a possibility. It's happened before. So I think that everything starts there, and it's not even think. I know everything begins and ends with Donovan Mitchell. So that's the first order of business. What am I hearing? What do I know about that? Okay, here's what I'm hearing. Nobody from the Cavs knows. Nobody has heard from Donovan Mitchell as of right now. Donovan Mitchell hasn't said anything, nor should he. The season, again, hasn't even been over 24 hours. My guess is he knows what he's going to do. He already knows. There's a certain time that these guys will take and reflect when they have these opportunities. I believe, only because it's, number one, a gut feeling, that he will sign a max extension. Why? I'll get to why in a second. Number two, other people throughout the league, as The Athletic reported, my sources are saying the same thing, that Donovan Mitchell is going to take the money. And, other people around the league are saying they believe that Donovan Mitchell is going to sign the extension with the Cavaliers, which would be for 4 more years beyond next season. He would still have to decline his player option for next season for the extension to kick in, which is kind of a lot of, you have to know a lot about contract situations, but it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is 4 more years is what the extension will be for. It's a maximum contract extension. And that's why a lot of people around the league, as well as my gut, is telling me he's going to take that, because I don't think that Donovan Mitchell wants to walk away from tens of millions of dollars. It's one thing when LeBron James does it, because LeBron James is going to get that money back. Kevin Durant probably get that money back. Donovan Mitchell's not at that level where, he's getting as many endorsements as those guys are nationally, where he's, the 15-time All-Star like those guys are, Steph Curry. I mean, those guys, they can afford to walk away a little bit from tens of millions of dollars in their NBA contract, because they're going to make it up in other areas. Donovan Mitchell right now is not, and he can't bank on the fact that he may someday. So I think, number one, more than anything, is, I've been in the locker room. I haven't asked Donovan Mitchell anything other than if he's happy here. And of course he is. Of course he says he is. He's not going to say no in the middle of the season. So, there's that element of it that I do believe that Donovan Mitchell is happy in Cleveland. And I believe him. I take his word at it. I see his body language in the locker room. I see him cheering on the other guys. I see him put his arm around, we all saw that, put his arm around Darius Garland on the bench against Orlando, kind of got him going. Donovan Mitchell is, and I've said this on here before, he's a teammate he's a superstar who's his teammate's biggest cheerleader. So I think that that's something to keep in mind. He's just that kind of person. And I do think he's happy in Cleveland. I think he likes it here. I think there's a lot that he really likes. I think there's some stuff that he doesn't like. But guess what? You're going to have that with every job and every team. And he understands that. All guys, every NBA player seemingly understands that. Maybe not Kevin Durant, because he's suffering from chronic dissatisfaction. But other than that, most people realize that when they're at a team and in a situation, they know that there's going to be good and bad, and you try to weigh that out. And I think Donovan Mitchell likes it. And I think more than anything, my friends, is they can pay him more money, considerably more money. The Cavaliers can pay him tens of millions more dollars for a longer contract than anybody else. And I think if he eyes that situation, like, okay, say he's looking at Miami. Well, the Miami Heat, it's nice to live in Miami, but you're wealthy enough, you can live there whenever you'd like. You can visit it whenever you'd like. And you look at the situation with the team, Jimmy Butler's getting old. You know, I know that he's close with Bam Adebayo and all that, but he's also really close with George Niang and Joe Ingles and 10 other guys. I don't think that influences people's decision. Otherwise, LeBron would have never returned from Miami, come back to Cleveland, because he was with two of his best friends in Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade down there and was going to the finals. So I just think that there's a lot more to it than what the national media or national narrative paints a lot of times, or what we see on social media. Which I find fascinating about Donovan Mitchell was the fact that he, all summer, all we heard was he wanted to go to the Knicks. He wants to go to New York, wants to go to Brooklyn. Well, that died down, and then it became the Lakers and the Heat. And there's a reason that it keeps getting switched, because, you know, the national media has to have something to talk about, and I can appreciate that. But I also know that there's some stuff that's real and some stuff that's not real. And I think they don't want to ever, other than The Athletic, which did an excellent job on their Cavs breakdown right after the season last night, and we've got it all posted there on HoopsWire. I thought they actually add some reason and perspective, because what I'm hearing from NBA GMs that aren't working for the Cavaliers on my texts, they're saying, we're getting the vibe that Donovan Mitchell's picking up that extension. Now, where would they get that vibe from? Donovan Mitchell, his agent, agents who talk to his agent, you know? So, I mean, that's where they're getting their information. Does it mean he's picking up the extension for sure? Of course not. But we're going to separate fact from fiction on this show. I think the reality is, the fiction is he's out of here. The fact is he's going to contemplate it, and everybody around the league feels like, yeah, he's going to take the money. He's going to stay in Cleveland. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen for sure. But that's what the reality is around the league. That's the reality that people are feeling. Okay, so Donovan Mitchell, I'm just going to come out and predict that he's back. Summer is situated. Now you know where to go from there, okay? I don't think, if you're the Cavs, anybody expected you to beat the Boston Celtics in the second round, even if you had a healthy Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell and Caris LeVert. I don't think anybody expected. The Boston Celtics were 64-18. The Cavs were 48-34. What I think Cavs fans would have liked to have seen is for them to handle Orlando a lot easier, you know, than play this young team and go 7 games, have to come back from 18 down in game 7. That was less than ideal. Most people predicted that the Cavs should get it together in the first round and sweep Orlando or beat them in 5. Didn't happen. So you would have liked to have seen that. And the Cavs certainly have that potential to do those things with the roster that they had this season. You would have liked to have seen them defeat or take the Boston Celtics to 6 games, 7 games, if totally healthy. Play their best. Play every game like they played Game 5, which was just all-out determination, make the people proud. Charles Barkley said on TNT after the game, I'm proud of the Cavs for the way they battled. They could have mailed it in. They could have packed it in. So if they had, we all know since the All-Star break, the Cavs have been clunky, right? Inconsistent, clunky. Darius Garland, terrible year for him. Well, you expect so much more from him. He looked like a role player, which is fine, but he's not paid like a role player, and you were expecting him to be an all-star. He has that potential. So why didn't that happen? Evan Mobley, up and down. The numbers will show, his three-point shooting's better, his scoring's up, his field. I don't care about any of that. The eye test when it comes to, is he helping you win games? There's a player years ago, many of you may remember, Steph Marbury, and I'm not comparing Mobley to him. But I remember he had fantastic numbers. Stevie Franchise, fantastic numbers across the board, got better every year. But it didn't. Jeff Van Gundy had a line about those guys, and it probably had something to do with their light keeping going out. But the Jeff Van Gundy's line about them was, are they winning numbers? So just because Evan Mobley's numbers are up doesn't mean that those numbers lead to winning. That means he's putting up better individual numbers. And I like Evan Mobley. I think he's got ceiling this high. Why isn't he there yet? Obviously so young. Can't be super judgmental. But did he take steps this year? Forget the numbers. Watch him play. Did he take steps? I would say no. I would say at best he's the same guy he was last season. So we've got Darius Garland, who's worse, Evan Mobley, who's the same. And if you want to make a case that he's slightly better, okay, slightly better, which shouldn't be the case, slightly better. It should be he's ready to take that leap. We see it. We know where he's going. He's going to be there. I don't see that. I see maybe he'll be there. He's not now. Maybe he won't be there either. Maybe this is Evan Mobley's ceiling. It's not terrible. He's great defensively, elite defensively. Offensively, they need more from him on a consistent basis. And that, to me, is not entirely Evan Mobley's fault. Which leads us to Coach J.B. Bickerstaff. Fact, the Cavs are contemplating whether or not to let him go. Fiction, they've already decided, they already know his replacement. That's not true. They're contemplating. They evaluate everybody at the end of the season. His job is in jeopardy. I will say this. I've covered the Cavs now, I say for 117 years, but it's been close to 20. And I have never, ever met a classier coach. And I like them all. I haven't met a classier coach, a better person, more personable, never gets mad than JB Bickerstaff. Now, obviously, you've seen him with the refs. He gets mad there, as do I. But you just don't see me on TV yelling and screaming at them. You see JB. But as far as a regular, dealing with the media relationship, just fantastic. Never gets upset at anybody. Sometimes I'll look at somebody asking a question, or maybe I've asked one of those where you're just like, really? And then he just very professional, doesn't get upset, which is, that's hard to do when you're asked thousands upon thousands of questions and you've had bad days as a human being, as a basketball coach, just to stay even keeled. So that said, being a great dude does not keep you employed as a coach. It's all going to come down to the evaluation is going to be centered on, do our guys play hard for him? Do they develop for him? Are they developing under him? I think the number one, the answer is yes, without question. The Cavs play hard under JB Bickerstaff. There's no question about that. They've never mailed it in. I covered this team, obviously, every game this year. Not once did they mail it in. There were times that they looked like they were mailing it in because they couldn't get it together, but there was no question. And I've seen guys and players and teams who have given up on their coach and they're done with their coach and they don't want to play for him anymore. That was not the case with JB Bickerstaff because the Cavs would have just mailed it in Game 5 against the Celtics. Instead, I saw them play one of their hardest games, most determined games that they've played all year in Game 5. If you don't like the coach, you don't do that because you have an excuse to get blown out of the gym and you have an excuse to try to get him fired, which happens all the time in the NBA. So I think that there's that working in his favor. Now, are there questions? We ran a story about Donovan Mitchell thinking, not really respecting JB's in-game adjustments or not respecting, him. JB's not going to lay the hammer down. He's not going to bench Darius Garland because Darius Garland can't get it together. He is a player's coach. And that can work in your favor sometimes, but sometimes you got to be tough and just say, pull it together or you're getting on the bench. This is the NBA. This isn't middle school basketball where you have to worry about feelings and all that. I mean, you do have to worry about feelings, surprisingly. But, Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra. I know some of you don't think Doc Rivers is a great coach, but I'll tell you, Doc Rivers does not care about feelings. He will go in there and tell you, you need to pull it together or you're having a seat. And I'm not saying one way works better than the other. It's just different style. So I'm leaning towards JB not being back as the head coach of the Cavs. I don't have any inside information on that. We saw the Athletic report. We posted it on the website that he is potentially his job is in serious jeopardy. I believe that. I believe that from the All-Star break on for the most part. And excuse me while I get a drink. Hopefully the lights won't go out while I'm getting a drink. Actually, I don't think there's any other show in America where the studio lights continuously go out. I've just got all kinds of unique stuff here, which, even if you don't like basketball, you should tune in. I do wear a Browns hat a lot. I saw that they have the toughest strength of schedule in the NFL, which just, come on, man. Can't we get a break? There's one team I don't cover that I just root wholeheartedly as a fan. I can, put my emotions on my sleeve, and it's the Cleveland Browns, and I'm pretty convinced they've taken 5 years off of my life. Anyway, we'll let Mike talk about those things. I'll stick to the Cavaliers here. Darius Garland. So, okay. Here's what I'm going with so far. These are my facts. Donovan Mitchell stays, signs the extension. JB Bickerstaff is probably a goner. I hate to say it, but I think that's going to be the case. I think the Cavs think, is he the guy to get us to the next level? And if you have even a shred of doubt about that, you have to move on. I, for one, am not always for huge changes. I think that there's a lot to be said for familiarity with your coaches and players and just making fringe changes. So I don't know that firing JB Bickerstaff would be the answer. Could be. I know a lot of fans will be disappointed if he's not fired, but as a guy who covers the NBA, I always just say this is the team's decision. They want to win. They want to win championships, right? So their whole job is to try to win and put a winning product, a championship contender on the court. That's your whole job. Us, we kind of look at it from the outside and give our opinions. And, sometimes we're just guessing. We're right. Sometimes we're not. Others, you'll hear about it when we're right, which I do all the time. You won't hear about it when we're not right. So when it comes to the coach, I don't know. Whatever the Cavs think is the best decision. Maybe he, look, I covered Mike Brown when he was in Cleveland. I've seen Mike Brown leap as a coach just, and I thought Mike Brown was always a good coach. I've just seen his growth as a coach as he's gotten older and how he's, utilized different philosophies and systems. And now, Sacramento Kings, probably play over their heads because of Mike Brown. Don't get me wrong, they have talent, but I think that he's really grown as a coach. He's gotten that opportunity. Is JB Bickerstaff going to get that opportunity? I don't know. And I don't really have an opinion on whether he should. I will just accept whatever the Cavs decide. So you won't see me going, oh, they have to get rid of JB Bickerstaff. I think their problems go beyond the coach when they do have problems. Darius Garland. I had a report on the website. This is absolutely fact that if Donovan Mitchell signs that extension, his representatives, Rich Paul, who I know and love, not quite from the 330, but from the 216, I haven't asked Rich this, but the report from The Athletic says Darius Garland, Rich Paul would talk to the Cavs about trading Darius Garland if Donovan Mitchell is, signs that extension. In other words, Rich Paul might not find them to be a fit. Well, you're singing to the choir if that's the case, Rich, because I don't know that the Cavs think that. I don't know that the Cavs think that Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are fit. You tried it for 2 years now, right? 2 seasons. They just don't seem to play their best when they're on the court together. Mitchell does, Garland does not. And you're the Cavs. Guess what these playoffs showed? You still need outside shooting. We were told at the beginning of the year, Max Strus, George Niang, we went out and got outside shooters. And Max had a nice game in Game 5 against Boston, but he wasn't consistent. And George Niang was nowhere to be found for the most part. So they didn't really upgrade their outside shooting that much. I've talked to people in the Cavs organization who thought that they have had good outside shooters. That just JB hasn't been able to get them open. So there's that school of thought. Yeah, the outside shooting's fine. They can't get good looks because we don't have a plan in place or a system in place to get these guys open looks. So I don't know what's true and what's not there. I think that they need to go out and get some more outside shooters. I think that they would be okay with trading Darius Garland. I really do. And I think that I've read that everywhere. You know how many fans have said to me, if Donovan Mitchell signs that extension, you trade Darius Garland. Those fans probably right. I think that could be the Cavs' biggest move of the offseason, other than a coaching change. So I think you're looking at the coaching change. Everything's contingent, again, on Donovan Mitchell signing that extension, right? Let's say he does that. You change coaches, right? You're probably changing coaches, which, again, I don't know how I feel about that. And then if you're looking to make a splash, Darius Garland's your move, and you're not going to get a star back for him. I've seen people say, well, what about Brandon Ingram from New Orleans? They need a point guard. I don't think New Orleans does that. I mean, Brandon Ingram's injury prone anyway, but he's a fine player. He's consistent and healthy when he's there. I don't. If I'm New Orleans, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say, give us Darius Garland. We'll give you our second best player, and probably best when Zion Williamson is hurt, which is a lot. So no, that's not going to happen. I'm looking at somebody more like the Wizards or the Spurs or somebody who's going to say, okay, we want this guy who was a one-time All-Star. We'll develop him, get him to be an All-Star again, and we'll give you some of our younger promising guys and picks. I heard one GM say, Garland's probably going to garner you something along the lines after this past season of Tyus Jones and Corey Kispert from the Wizards, and maybe another player to make some salary match, and some picks, maybe some protected picks. I mean, it's not going to be, you're not getting a star wing for Darius Garland. You're not. I know how fans are, and it's give us your best players for our guys who are either end of the bench or had a terrible year. So, and Scott says he bets that the Pelicans would give up Brandon Ingram for Jarrett Allen, and I bet they might do that too, because Jarrett Allen had a career year. Even though he didn't make the All-Star team, he looked like an All-Star for the most part. I'd be real hesitant to make that move again, because although, who knows what Brandon Ingram would bring next to Evan Mobley. You'd be keeping Darius Garland in that scenario, and Donovan Mitchell. Brandon Ingram might be that wing that you need, and then who knows? But I don't know that I would do that either. I know we had the rumor about Jarrett Allen refusing to take an injection so that he could play more. I don't know how true that is. There's probably some truth to it. I think it may have been overstated. I don't think it went down like that. I don't think the Cavs say, "Hey, take this injection so you can play more." And Jarrett Allen said, "No." I think there's a lot more to it than just that. So I don't hold that against Jarrett Allen. I don't hold that against the Cavs, because I think there is some fiction that we haven't worked through in that story. So I think the Cavs, if they're going to make a deal, they're going to have to make a move with Darius Garland. I think they did Darius a big disservice. As much as I like Craig Porter Jr., I think the Cavs did Darius a big disservice by not signing a veteran backup point guard after Ricky Rubio, got hurt and retired, or he had the mental health things. So I think that Darius played his best basketball of his life when Ricky Rubio was backing him up. I think that you could have gone out and signed another veteran point guard at a minimum deal to back him up. John Wall would have done it. John Wall is also represented by Rich Paul, and he would have done it. He would have come to the Cavs for a minimum deal. Now, is John Wall going to help, change the course of the franchise at this stage of his career? Of course not. But he would have been that veteran guy to kind of help Darius Garland, lead Darius Garland. He would have been a coach, almost like a personal coach for him. And I'm not saying it had to be John Wall, but there are plenty of older guys like that who would have done that. And I think that the Cavs really need to get some veteran players off the bench in the backcourt for next season, along with Karis LeVert, who I like. Yes, he's hot and cold, but he's been that way his whole career, and that's fine. Your bench guys aren't supposed to lead your team to championships. They're supposed to be, well, let's hope we get 2 hot games out of them for every 1 cold. That's what bench guys are. So I stand, and you got to make a decision on Isaac Okoro, restricted free agent. What's going to happen there? I think, frankly, that he and the Cavs will work out a reasonable deal. Okoro is what he is. Probably their best wing defender, other than Dean Wade, who's excellent at that as well. I think we're going to see almost everybody back. I really do. Maybe the guys that are at the end of the bench. The Damian Jones who's obviously a wonderful guy. I'm not sure who I'm missing in there that's kind of at the end of the bench that may not be back. Marcus Morris, who had a wonderful Game 5. He's a question mark because he was on a minimum expiring deal. Tristan Thompson, question mark. So I mean, those are the minor things. The big thing to me would be Darius Garland. Well, obviously Donovan Mitchell. That's the huge question of the offseason. JB Bickerstaff's number 2. And then if you get those 2 things situated, number 3 would be Darius Garland, and he would quickly turn into number 1 once you get past Mitchell and Bickerstaff. Darius Garland, to me, would be the big story of the offseason. And I think that, look, if somebody said Tyus Jones, Corey Kispert, filler, and picks, yeah, let's do it. I think that those guys could fit. I think that, I'm not saying to put you over the top, but Tyus Jones is a steady veteran point guard. And sure, we'll do it. Now, obviously, you want to try to find something better than that. But I'm saying if Darius Garland doesn't want to be here anymore, Rich Paul doesn't want Darius Garland here anymore, yeah, then you got to take what you can get. And hopefully, Kispert, to me, had a fantastic season. He's a great outside shooter. That fills a need, and he's a good athlete. So I think that he's never going to be an all-star, but he's a good player. And those are the kind of players we saw in January that were around Donovan Mitchell when Darius Garland was out and they won 17-18. It's because they all came together. And I'm hoping upon hope the Cavs fans don't get too upset if nothing happens. Donovan Mitchell signs the extension. They keep JB Bickerstaff. Darius Garland doesn't get traded. He says he's happy here. Don't get too upset, because I think that the Cavs did what they were supposed to do. Wasn't always pretty. Should have been prettier. They got out of the first round of playoffs. They got to the second round. They lost with the team with the best record in the NBA. Okay, so take the next step next year. You went to the play-in tournament. Then you went to the first round of playoffs. Then you got to the second round. Wasn't always pretty, I admit. They should have been better at times. A lot of times that after the All-Star break, they weren't as good as we thought they could have been. But they ended up in the same place where I thought they would end up, which is losing in the second round of the playoffs. Next year, you get to the conference finals. That's your goal. You get beat in the second round of the playoffs again next year, then you're a disappointment. Okay? I think they have some wiggle room. They have a window here that we don't need to be all panicked about. I think that the Cavs are on a good path, but they need to make some changes. I know most of you want JB Bickerstaff fired. At least that's what I'm getting in my mentions. Okay, make that move, but you better bring in somebody good. You better bring in somebody the players could tolerate. You don't want a situation like in Milwaukee where they fire the guy midway through the season, or a David Blatt situation where he's fired midway through the season. Although that was the right move because the Cavs won the championship that year. Milwaukee this year was not the right move. So, they brought in Doc Rivers, got beat in the first round anyway. You don't want to do that for your Cavs. Bring in a new coach, lose in the second round anyway. I'm not saying keep JB Bickerstaff, but I'm not saying fire him. I'm saying let's evaluate. Let's step back, have some perspective, reason, and evaluate. And I get it from the fan standpoint because I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I think they should fire a coach and hire a new one every game. And I like Kevin Stefanski. But I get it. I get those emotions. I'm like, fire Kevin Stefanski at halftime. I don't care that he's in the Coach of the Year running. We're losing right now. So I get those emotions. But, if you're Kobe Altman, you're going to be approaching this with some perspective. And I think Kobe Altman will stay as the lights again go out on Sam Amico. I think Kobe Altman will end up staying and keeping his job because if Donovan Mitchell signs that extension, we're all going to celebrate it. The vibes will be great. And I like Kobe Altman. I don't think you just keep changing people in the front office for the sake of change. Again, what are you going to do? Who are you going to bring in? Who's going to be the answer? So I think that, Kobe's adjusting and he sees the same things we see, which is, okay, some changes here need to happen. But at the same time, we got to where we were supposed to go. We weren't supposed to go to the conference finals this year. It's only bad when you don't get where you're supposed to go. And the Cavs did it. It wasn't always pretty. They could have been better. Every team says they could be better after the playoffs if you don't win the championship. So I think there's a lot to think about, a lot to digest. We've got a ton of stuff on HoopsWire. Again, we're going to keep it coming. And before the lights go out again, I can't believe I've been here 40 minutes. Have I said anything at all that's interested you guys? I hope so. But you know what? It's going to last for a while because we'll be on YouTube. I'll put this on the website. I'll be back next week to talk more about it next week. And there'll be so much to chew on. I know I couldn't give you firm answers because, again, we're only 24 hours away, less than 24 hours away from the end of the season. So there's a lot coming in. Check it out on HoopsWire. We got a ton of stuff there about what's being said. We're going to have more follow-ups. And I'm just sitting by the phone because I'm waiting for the next move to hear whether JB's getting fired, to hear if Donovan Mitchell's signing the extension. And, of course, we're trying to cover the rest of the NBA, too. So as far as the J.J. Redick stuff with the Cavs, I'll cover that real quick before I say goodbye. I don't think that's real. We ran it on the website, but not everything I wrote on the website. I think there's a chance. If we put on the website, I believe there's a chance. But I don't think that the Cavs are like calling up JJ Redick right now, finding out if he'll come. Gosh, and you know what? Next week we're going to talk a lot more about Bronny James. I do believe he will work out for the Cavaliers. Maybe that's the bombshell. Maybe I buried the lead. But I do believe the Cavs are going to have Bronny James in for a workout, even though they don't have a second-round pick, and I doubt they would draft him at number 20. But he will come in for a workout because you can always trade for second-round picks. He's going to the Utah Jazz in terms of a workout, or the Jazz are extending an invitation. The Cavs are going to extend an invitation too. So I'll leave you with that. I know many of you don't think Bronny James is a big deal, but he's a basketball celebrity, and his dad is 39 years old and still doggone good. And I'll let you fill in the blanks from there. But I think it'd be exciting just to have him come to town in Cleveland, work out for the Cavs, see where he stands. And I think he's going to be drafted in the NBA this year. He may not be an NBA. He's definitely not an NBA player right now, but that's beside the point. It really is. Because you have to have some business acumen along with your basketball acumen. So, that said, I'm going to end the show at an even 42 minutes, which I so appreciate you staying with me. Next time, I hope you enjoyed the buffalo in the background and the bed. I was going to try and pass it off like it's a screensaver, but it's real. So next time, maybe we'll take you to, the kitchen or the sunroom or somewhere more exciting, or the basement even, aren't I a blogger in my mom's basement? We'll go down there next time. Anyway, thank you so much for joining. And I hope I could answer some questions. We'll have a lot more on HoopsWire, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks for joining.